The day my daughter turned 6 should have been magical. I had planned everything weeks in advance. Balloons, her favorite cake, little party favors for her friends. She had been counting down the days, bouncing around the living room with that kind of pure excitement only a 6-year-old can have. I was exhausted from work and errands, but I did not care. This day was about her, and I wanted it to be perfect. I woke up that morning, still half asleep, and glanced at my phone. A message from my parents sat there, time-stamped early. I assumed it was a cheerful birthday note. Instead, it was blank, nothing more than a series of emojis that I could not decipher. Odd, I thought, but I let it slide. I was focused on my daughter and her happiness. By mid-morning, my house was bustling. Friends started arriving, children laughing, parents chatting, and the smell of fresh cupcakes filled the air. I had gone out of my way to make sure everything was perfect, including the small things like custom napkins and personalized party hats. I thought about my parents, who I had been paying $700 a week to help with various things. Mortgage, bills, groceries. They were supposed to contribute something, even just their presence to my daughter's special day. Hours passed, and there was still no sign of them. I brushed it off at first, thinking they might be running late. I sent a text, casual at first. Hey, are you on your way for Emily's birthday? No reply. I called. Straight to voicemail. I tried again 15 minutes later. Still nothing. My chest tightened, a low anxiety I could not shake creeping up. Finally, at around 1 o'clock, my patience snapped. I called again, this time with more urgency. My father answered. Oh, hey, he said lazily, as if nothing were wrong. Busy morning. I swallowed my frustration. You know it is Emily's birthday today, right? You promised you would come. There was a pause on the line. Then my father chuckled lightly. Yeah, we saw it on the calendar. Busy day. Maybe next time. My stomach dropped. I felt heat rising to my face. You are kidding me, I said, my voice trembling, though I tried to keep it steady. I pay you $700 every week. $700. And you cannot even show up for your granddaughter's birthday. He sighed, almost irritated now. Listen, we have plans. Maybe you are overreacting. I slammed my phone down. Overreacting? I had spent hours, sacrificed sleep, coordinated everything to make a beautiful day for Emily, and they could not even be bothered to appear? I felt my hands shake with a combination of anger and hurt. Michael came up behind me and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Do you want me to call them? He asked softly. I shook my head. No, I said more to myself than to him. I need to handle this. They need to understand. By 3 o'clock, the party was winding down. Kids were tired, cupcakes mostly eaten, balloons deflating. My parents had not arrived. I finally sent a long text, raw and unfiltered. I pay you $700 a week. You skip my daughter's birthday. How do you justify this? You have no excuse, and I expect an explanation. The reply came an hour later. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I opened it, bracing myself. It read simply, We have agreed you are too emotional. We are busy. Maybe next year. I felt my chest tighten, the anger turning cold, icy. Too emotional, busy. My daughter, the light of my life, had been waiting, believing her grandparents would come, and they had dismissed her day like it was nothing. I felt an unfamiliar clarity wash over me. This was not negligence. This was deliberate. The next few days were a blur. I could not stop thinking about the message, replaying their words in my head. Michael noticed my quiet intensity, the way I would stare at my phone for long stretches, thinking through possibilities. He asked gently, Do you want to confront them? I nodded, though I knew it would not be simple. This was deeper than a simple argument. This was a breach of trust, a betrayal I had not fully realized until now. I started documenting everything. Emails, messages, even past interactions where they had manipulated situations to their advantage. It was painstaking work, but necessary. Every detail mattered, and I knew that if I ever wanted justice, or at least accountability, I needed proof. Then came the next move. I created a small private ledger, noting every week of payments, every promise made, every instance where they had either failed to meet expectations or deliberately ignored responsibilities. It was painstaking, methodical, but with each entry, my resolve strengthened. I was not going to allow this to continue. I was not going to let them manipulate, belittle, or control my life and my child's happiness any longer. Weeks passed, and my approach shifted from reaction to strategy. I no longer sent angry messages or called in the heat of emotion. Instead, I scheduled a meeting, one I knew they could not ignore, where I would present the evidence in person. Michael supported me quietly as I prepared. We gathered financial statements, receipts, screenshots, and notes. Every element told the same story: repeated neglect and deliberate emotional harm. The day of the confrontation, I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. My parents arrived, casually dressed, smiling as if they were unaware of the storm about to unfold. I remained calm, steady, though my heart pounded. I laid out the evidence methodically, step by step. I did not yell. I did not accuse beyond what the facts showed. I spoke slowly, deliberately, making sure they understood every point. At first, they reacted with disbelief, then irritation. My father tried to argue, claiming miscommunication. My mother feigned hurt. But as I presented the ledger, the undeniable proof, their defenses began to crumble. I could see the shift, the subtle panic forming behind their eyes. For the first time, they realized their actions were being held accountable. Then I delivered the final blow, carefully and coldly. I informed them that moving forward, I would no longer make any financial contributions to their comfort or convenience. Every dollar paid had been an investment in trust, in family unity, and they had squandered it. From that moment, boundaries were clear. Respect, presence, and honesty were non-negotiable. Failure to meet them would have consequences. Silence followed. It was thick, heavy, and yet somehow liberating. I had expected confrontation, tears, anger, maybe even defiance. But this quiet, stunned realization was more effective than any shouting match. For the first time, my parents were truly aware that their actions had consequences, that their neglect and manipulation would not go unnoticed or unchallenged. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle changes. They called less, but when they did, it was with a measured tone. They visited less frequently, but when they arrived, there was a new, cautious respect in their demeanor. I knew the dynamic had shifted, that the power balance had changed. For the first time in years, I felt in control, not just of my finances, but of my emotional space, my home, and my family's well-being. Emily, oblivious to the deeper dynamics, remained the center of my life. I ensured her next birthday was even more special, surrounded by friends and family who genuinely cared, who showed up not out of obligation but out of love. I realized then that the real victory was not in punishing my parents, but in reclaiming the joy and security of my own family. Through it all, I learned the hard truth. Love and money do not guarantee respect or care. Boundaries must be established. Evidence must be documented, and above all, courage must be found to confront those who betray you. My parents had underestimated my resolve, and in doing so, they taught me the power of accountability, the importance of standing firm, and the value of protecting those I love at any cost. By the end, the lessons were clear. I had paid my parents, yes, but I had also invested in clarity, in dignity, and in the protection of my daughter's emotional well-being. And in that investment, the return was far greater than money. It was peace, respect, and the knowledge that I could no longer be manipulated or disregarded. That birthday, the one they skipped, became a turning point. It was a painful, humiliating, and infuriating event, but it forced me to confront reality, take control, and set the boundaries that would define the next chapter of my life. And as I watched Emily laugh and play, surrounded by those who truly cared, I knew I had finally won, not through anger or revenge, but through strength, clarity, and unwavering commitment to what mattered most. No matter what they said, no matter the past, I had reclaimed our lives. And in that reclamation, I discovered something far more valuable than money, far more enduring than any resentment: freedom, dignity, and the ability to protect my own heart and my daughter's happiness. The weeks after Emily's birthday passed with a tense quiet. My parents reached out occasionally, but the conversations were brief, cautious, calculated. I could tell they were testing the new boundaries, seeing if they could slip back into old patterns. But I remained firm. Every call, every message, every interaction was measured. I had learned that firmness was the only way to maintain control, and I was not about to let them manipulate me again. One evening, as I was tucking Emily into bed, she looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Mommy, why didn't Grandma and Grandpa come to my birthday?" she asked softly. My heart clenched. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing a calmness I did not feel. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. They forgot something very important. But we still had a wonderful day, did we not? She nodded, hugging her stuffed bunny tighter. I still love them, she whispered. And in that moment, I realized the complexity of love, forgiveness, and protection. I had to teach Emily that love did not mean allowing someone to hurt you repeatedly. Respect and care were just as important, if not more so, than family titles. The next confrontation came unexpectedly. My father, perhaps testing the waters, sent a long email, apologizing in a tone that was part remorse and part manipulation. He claimed he did not understand the magnitude of their absence, that he had been overwhelmed with other matters. I read it once, twice, and then began drafting my response carefully. This was not about anger anymore. It was about accountability, setting the record straight. I detailed the payments I had made, the promises they had broken, the emotional impact on Emily and myself. Every sentence was deliberate, every point factual. I made it clear that while I valued family, I would no longer tolerate negligence or disrespect. I sent it and waited, anticipating the usual excuses. But this time there was silence. The silence was heavier than any argument. It forced reflection. I realized that my parents were not going to change overnight. Their patterns, their behaviors, were ingrained over decades. I could not fix them, but I could protect myself and Emily. This realization brought a clarity. That was almost liberating. I was no longer trapped in a cycle of manipulation. I could act with strategy, not emotion. A few days later, I received an unexpected call from my mother. I wanted to talk, she began, her voice hesitant, fragile even. I listened, not interrupting, as she tried to explain her perspective, her justifications. Every excuse, every rationalization only reinforced what I already knew. I thanked her for calling, but made it clear that words alone were not enough. Respect had to be shown through actions, consistently, without manipulation or neglect. The following months were about establishing routines and boundaries. Emily and I thrived in the stability I created. Her laughter filled the house again, unshadowed by the anxiety of disappointment or betrayal. I scheduled regular visits with family friends and relatives who genuinely cared, teaching Emily that meaningful connections were built on love, respect, and reliability, not just bloodlines. One afternoon, as I reviewed my finances and reconciled accounts, I realized something remarkable. I had transformed a cycle of manipulation and financial dependence into empowerment. The money I had been paying my parents, intended as support, had inadvertently funded my awareness, my strength, and my ability to protect Emily. I smiled, a quiet, satisfying smile. For the first time, the tables had turned. Then came the subtle revenge, not malicious but profoundly satisfying. I began reallocating the weekly $700 I had been sending to my parents. It went instead into Emily's college fund, her extracurricular activities, and small investments that would secure her future. Every dollar became a symbol of autonomy, a shield against the past, a testament to the lessons I had learned. I was no longer a contributor to manipulation. I was a creator of opportunity and security for my own family. A turning point arrived one evening when my parents unexpectedly showed up at our home. I had prepared for this possibility, anticipating either confrontation or a plea for reconciliation. They stood at the doorway, hesitant, awkward, trying to appear casual. I invited them in, maintaining a calm exterior, though internally I was calculating every word, every gesture. Emily, unaware of the underlying tension, ran to greet them with her usual warmth. My heart swelled, seeing her innocence untouched by their past behavior. I reminded myself that my role was to protect that innocence, to ensure that any interaction was safe and positive for her. I greeted them politely, setting the tone with measured calmness. The conversation started with small talk, but I steered it toward accountability, subtly reminding them of the past incidents, the birthday, the skipped responsibilities, the broken promises. They shifted uncomfortably, realizing that their previous tactics of deflection and manipulation would not work here. I remained composed, unwavering, a silent testament to the boundaries I had established. Then came the revelation, the quiet but devastating blow. I informed them that moving forward, any support or assistance would be conditional on respect, honesty, and active engagement. No more automatic payments, no more unquestioned trust. Every action would require consistency and accountability. Their reactions ranged from shock to begrudging acceptance. But I could see the understanding settling in, the understanding that the power dynamics had shifted irreversibly. Over the next few weeks, Interactions became more structured. They called before visiting, showed up on agreed-upon schedules, and made an effort to participate meaningfully in Emily's life. While it was not perfect, it was a stark improvement. I had transformed a relationship built on manipulation into one governed by respect and clear expectations. The power was no longer one-sided. Meanwhile, Emily flourished. Her school projects, her art, her confidence, all grew exponentially. She began inviting friends over, excitedly planning small parties and playdates. I watched her, realizing that the lessons I had imparted, both through words and actions, were taking root. She understood the importance of boundaries, of standing firm, and of valuing relationships that honored her worth. One evening, as we sat together after a long day, Emily hugged me tightly. "Mommy, I'm so happy," she whispered. "I love our family." I kissed her forehead, my heart full. "I love our family too, sweetie. And remember, families are not just about who shows up. They are about respect, love, and being there for each other." The months that followed were quieter, but with a deep sense of stability. My parents continued to adjust, their visits now more sincere, their contributions voluntary and thoughtful. I realized that I had not only changed the financial and emotional landscape, but had also set a precedent for accountability that could not be ignored. Then came a moment that felt surreal. My father, in a rare display of sincerity, admitted during one visit, "I did not realize how much our actions hurt you and Emily. I see it now," I nodded, choosing to acknowledge the statement without letting it undermine the boundaries I had set. Actions mattered more than words, and I was determined to maintain the equilibrium I had fought so hard to establish. Through it all, I discovered an important truth. Revenge was not about retribution in the traditional sense. It was about reclaiming power, protecting those you love, and ensuring that toxic patterns could not continue unchecked. By holding my parents accountable, I had reshaped our family dynamic, transforming manipulation into structure, neglect into responsibility, and pain into empowerment. Emily's next birthday was approaching. This time, I planned a celebration with those who had consistently shown care and respect. My parents were invited, of course, but the focus was on creating joy, not testing boundaries. As I watched Emily blow out the candles, surrounded by laughter and genuine affection, I felt an overwhelming sense of triumph. Not a triumph of anger, but of wisdom, courage, and careful, deliberate action. I realized that life had handed me a difficult, painful lesson, but through it, I had gained clarity, resilience, and a profound understanding of what it meant to protect and nurture. The manipulations and betrayals of my parents had forged a new strength in me, one that ensured Emily's happiness and security would never again be jeopardized by neglect or disrespect. By the end of the day, I reflected on everything: the anger, the strategy, the confrontation, and the eventual restoration of a functional, albeit cautious, family relationship. I had learned to transform hurt into action, betrayal into empowerment, and chaos into structured, intentional growth. And as I watched Emily fall asleep that night, clutching her favorite stuffed bunny, I understood the ultimate lesson. The most powerful form of revenge is not in punishing those who hurt you, but in reclaiming your life, protecting your loved ones, and creating a future where respect and care are non-negotiable. I had done that, and in doing so, I had turned a day of pain and neglect into a lasting legacy of strength, love, and unwavering protection. The boundaries were set, the lessons were learned, and for the first time in years I felt an unshakable peace, knowing that no one could take away what I had fought to protect: the joy, dignity, and security of my daughter and our family.